Raider Nation. Thank you for joining us on the Only Nation podcast, brought to you by the Raider Ramble. My name is Heidi, but you may know me as Kevlar Prom Dress or even Raider Ladybug. I'm here with Raider Homer and T3 Raider Facts, and we're ready to talk some Raiders football together.
Always ready to talk some Raider football, and we're 4-3 and on the right track.
It's great to get back to those winning ways. Now it's on to divisional play. Let's go.
Yeah, today on the show, we'll be talking about the Raiders' big victory over the Cleveland Browns on Sunday in a game filled with cold and nasty weather. And we'll also be discussing the upcoming matchup with our division rivals, the Chargers, in our other brand new home stadium, SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles.
Back to L.A.
Too bad that the fans can't show up, because it would have been awesome to see the Raider Nation invade SoFi Stadium.
We will again one day.
Sure we will.
Okay, Raider Nation, here's how you can get in touch with us, because we would love to hear from you. Leave a message for us on the Only Nation podcast voicemail line. That number is 904-701-8667. That's 904-701-8667. You can also text us at the same number. Our email address is onlynationpod@gmail.com, and we can also be found on Twitter and Instagram at onlynationpod. You can also check us out on Facebook and YouTube. Just search the Only Nation Podcast. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to us on your favorite social media accounts and podcasting apps, and help us spread the word, because we really appreciate your support. Don't forget to send us a message with your name and address. Tell us what you want to hear, and we'll get back with you. And we'll even throw in some free Raider swag. You can also check out our website at onlynationpod.com.
Okay.
Here's the latest Raider news.
The Raiders defeated the Cleveland Browns this past week by a score of 16-6. The score was 6-3 at halftime, Raiders. And then the Raider D held the Browns to only another field goal in the second half. And I've got to add, LaMarcus Joyner played a few snaps at safety. And what a difference that made.
They listened to us.
Yes. Yeah, he did, dude. He made a couple of good plays, batting that one pass down and then hitting the receiver and helping jar that ball loose, saving a touchdown on both plays. That was very solid effort on his part. That's the Joyner I've been hoping to see. You were right, Heidi. He should have been at safety the whole time.
Well, Wade Phillips figured that out.
Right.
He was a puzzle. Joyner was a puzzle that Phillips figured out when he was with the Rams. He did fantastic as a safety. And he comes here, we stick him in the slot, and we wonder why he's not playing well. Well, you're not playing him at the right position. That's why. So it was really good to see that. He was only there for a few snaps, but boy, it made such a difference in those few snaps.
And you could tell when he was playing at the safety position, he was playing with a lot more confidence, too.
Yes. And we have him for another year and a half, right?
I think you're right. I think he's still under contract through next year.
But I think we're out of dead money. We can cut him without dead cap space starting next year.
Well, that's not what I'm getting at. I'm just saying that we can salvage his time here with the Raiders if they play him more at safety, I think. Of course, I still like Eric Harris, maybe in the versus the run and running situations,
Yeah.
But Joyner towards the end of the game or in the red zone and you're trying to protect the end zone, put Joyner back there for sure.
And what also was nice was they played different schemes. When we went back to Paulie G's base scheme, they started moving the ball right away. We pulled out of it, started holding them again. Worked really well.
I noticed both of our safeties dropping back. So I guess that was the cover 2 man. But yeah, the single high safety, I'm not down with that at all. That always is eaten up. We don't have the safety for that.
Yeah.
Hey, Heidi, how did our boy Derek Carr do?
Derek Carr was 15 for 24 for 112 yards and 1 touchdown. Even though he was sacked twice, he was able to use his legs to keep plays alive. In fact, he was the second leading rusher for the Raiders with a total of 6 carries for 41 yards.
Take that, Carr haters.
Not bad.
I want everybody who said that he could not do it with his legs to just sit down.
Never said he couldn't. Said he doesn't.
Yeah, and well, now everybody that said that, they're all like, "See, I told you. If he'd have just done that, But you have to be honest. Yes, of course, I'm a huge Derek Carr fan, so I know that he was not comfortable in the pocket. And yes, he was getting happy feet. I pointed it out before. But I wasn't going to sit there and bash the guy because, he went through 3 injuries in 2 years. 2 of them were pretty major, the back and the leg. It took him time to get his body back. But when you started seeing him last year move around the pocket a little bit better, and then this year especially, but like hits, he's been taking hits this year, like when he ducked under the defender to get the first down, and then against the Bucks when that number 45 hit him out of bounds and he spun around on the ground and he bounced back up. Hits like that are what's helping him believe in his body again. So, yes, of course he's going to start running. And I hope we see a little bit more of that RPO play, too.
And you've got to run a lot and run well when you're playing in Graupel.
Agreed. And he is playing smarter.
He is.
Yes. Except that he's got to slide a little bit more. He does have to slide a little bit more because he's still got a case of the fumbles.
Yeah, but I thought he played pretty solid. I really did. He didn't have the outstanding stats. Well, you're not going to have outstanding stats when, the feels like is 25 degrees and you're, trying to throw in Graupel, which is like, what is it? What did they say it is? It's kind of freezing sleet or something.
Freezing snow, sleet, rain, and gravel.
Sounds awful. At least here in Alaska, it's just been cold.
Yeah, I'm glad that he finally shook that can't win in inclement weather. It wasn't just Derek Carr. We've said this before on the podcast. The team historically has been bad in inclement weather, but I'm glad that Derek Carr finally got that off his back.
Yeah, especially because that first game that he won under 45 degrees was that game that Mac had 5 sacks. And while that weather was cold, that weather was nice. It was just really cold.
Yeah.
And for him to be able to build off of a game where it was just miserable was really impressive to see.
Yeah, not just the cold, but the horrible weather conditions altogether.
Right.
Yes.
Well, according to ESPN.com, the registered attendance for Sunday's game was 10,972, which was only 16% of capacity at First Energy Stadium. So they were kept company by the fans, but not a lot of them. But that's probably about what you're going to see at the NFL stadiums right now, at the ones that do allow fans attendance, simply because of COVID.
I actually saw more silver and black in the stands than I thought I would.
We travel well everywhere.
No surprise there. In an interesting stat posted by Josh Dubow of the AP on Sunday, the Raiders became only the 3rd team in 25 years to have 3 drives that took 8+ minutes each. The other 2 times that has happened was when the Steelers did it to the Browns in 2016 and when the Falcons did it against the Chiefs way back in the year 2000. I mean, you know what? We dominated them. I love that. I love in the 4th quarter when we had the ball for almost 10 minutes and then, we just ate up the clock, scored that touchdown. And then, yes, the bend but don't break defense. Steelers missed a field goal. We get the ball back with 2 minutes, and we were still able to seal the deal. That last drive could have kept going for another 6 or 7 minutes,
Gruden just had to be smiling ear to ear because that's exactly the kind of ball he loves to play.
That's Gruden ball.
Yeah, the Browns
there.
only had 6 drives the entire day. When the Raiders have the Raiders have a time of possession dominated like that.
Like 37 minutes, right?
Yeah, like 37, 38 minutes to 22 minutes. It was very impressive.
Yeah. It reminded me of that game in the rain when we played the Chiefs way back in the day. We dominated them. That's the kind of football I like seeing. We've been watching a lot of these high-scoring games, but there's just something about a hard-hitting game that 2 defenses are battling each other that to me is just as exciting as when 2 offenses are going at each other, But this year, you've just been seeing offenses destroying the defenses. So it was nice to see this style of game. All right, the Raiders were penalized only 5 times for a total of 25 yards, but 2 of those were when the defense jumped off sides. And that is something that keeps reoccurring for this team. Hey, but at least the penalties are going down. A couple of times this year, we've had less penalties than the other team. I mean, we're trending in the right direction as far as like penalties, committing less penalties.
5 for 25 is tolerable.
Yeah, you're gonna make mental mistakes in a game like this, especially like we're talking about all this inclement weather and stuff, and then not just that, but our defensive line is trying to make something happen. Of course, I think it was Abram was offside on one of them too, right? Of course, but he's trying to make something happen too. All right, the defense did not record a single sack against Baker Mayfield, and they have only 7 so far this season. That is not going to cut it, and that puts them in the bottom 4 for all teams in the NFL so far this season.
When are we going to solve this problem? And I miss Buckner.
Yes.
Something has got to change.
Well, I mean, like I was just saying, Abram was, offsides. I think that's what's going to have to happen. I mean, Littleton, supposedly he was a good pass rusher, right? Like maybe find a way to involve him in the pass rush and get him going with some sacks or something like that. He's not necessarily playing well in coverage, so maybe he could, help us out there.
I've seen them line him up in the gaps for blitzes, but he just kind of seems to go halfway. It's kind of half speed. It's not like he's even trying.
I hope he's not turning into that kind of player that's just kind of giving up on the defensive scheme, and thus he doesn't want to play and all this and that. I hope he's not turning into that kind of player.
That's what I'm afraid of, and I'm kind of challenging him this week. But it's what's
Paulie G. It's probably his plan to have him give up on half the blitzes. But when we did blitz, it did mix it up against the offense. The offense wasn't quite sure what to do. So we didn't really get a hold of Mayfield, but throwing blitzes at him, switching out of schemes, we ran like 3 or 4 different schemes. It kept them on their toes. And that's what, the weather was horrible, but we did hold them. We didn't even let them score a touchdown.
And they did switch Max from one side to the other. So they kind of kept things a little off balance. So it seems like the defensive scheme improved a little bit. Now, dramatically, no.
The changes were enough to give me some hope for this defense. We're going to need this defense to show up for the rest of the year. We already know that our offense can score points. We already know that our offense can play keep away, but we need our defense to get in there and get some turnovers, get some pick sixes, get some sacks like we're talking about. But once we do that, then we are really, really going to be a threat in the playoffs.
Getting that turnover on the first drive kind of set the tone for the defense, and they kind of got into a bend but don't break mentality. So that was the key, I think.
Right. Kwiatkowski, man, what a great player. He's probably one of the best signings we've had, and he's only been 3 or 4 games.
Right. And I've mentioned this before. When he plays better, it seems to elevate everybody on the team. And I would say Abram is another one of those guys. If you have Kwiatkowski and Abram playing at the top of their game, I think that elevates the entire defense.
Absolutely.
Now, in a stat relayed by Vinny Bonsignor on Raider Nation Radio and the Las Vegas Review-Journal, the Raiders on Sunday broke an 11-game losing streak in games played below 50 degrees. So earlier in the year against Kansas City, Derek Carr got that Arrowhead Stadium monkey off his back. And this past week, he and the team got over that cold weather game hurdle as well.
It's a new car, brand new car.
Shiny car.
Better than 2016 Carr.
We're getting
I think
there.
so.
Yes.
He's seeming to play with a lot more confidence. And I will admit, the roster is a lot more talented this year than the 2016, I believe.
Yes. Overall, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
Now, Trent Brown was scheduled to start the game, and then he took ill in the locker room and had to be wheeled out and checked into the hospital for some tests. It really was a scary situation for the coaches and players, but things seem okay now. He had to stay overnight in a Cleveland hospital, and then he was released. No status update on Trent's availability versus the Chargers. Now, Trent did not practice on Wednesday, and neither did guard Richie Incognito. Both are expected probably to miss the game. Damon Arnett was at practice, but not a full participant.
Yeah, and as critical as I've been against Trent Brown, especially last episode, I'm definitely not going to say F Trent Brown this week. I mean, this was something that could have ended up really serious. And
it could have killed him.
And that's something I'm not going to mess with. I mean, he didn't do his IV himself, so he didn't have any responsibility. The only responsibility he might have had was that because of all the other drama he's been involved in, it did make us kind of skeptical right at first and piss off a lot of people. But when the facts come out, it's like, oh, well, that totally makes sense. Totally understandable. You've got to treat that's an emergency.
And they interviewed Derek Carr after the game, and he really was deeply concerned.
Yeah, I would be too. When I first heard about it, when I first heard about it, it was in a Raiders chat, and it was somebody who, they just offhandedly said, oh, they had to wheel him out of the locker room. And it's someone who is pretty sarcastic like I can be. And I was like, oh, haha, whatever. And then I realized, no, that was true. And I was like, oh, crap. That's not good. If that happened, that's serious.
Yeah, it sucks that he had to go through that. Prayers to Trent, but at the same time, like, it's hard not to jump to conclusions when you're taking off your monitoring device and things like that.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's not that. This is an example of why it's not a good idea to just start putting shit all over social media, trashing a player. I think I made a comment, in one of his posts where I just said, you know what, like, you're being an embarrassment, to the Raider Nation and especially the Raider fans in Texas, But I just try not to bash him too hard. But like, yeah, Trent, hopefully, you can recover from this and not make any more silly mistakes like turning off your monitoring device.
I wish I could get inside his head and see what his true passion for the game and for the team is. But first and foremost, again, like most everybody else, I really wish him well. I want to make sure his health is preserved and that he comes out of this healthy and happy and can get back to football if that's what his priority is.
And now I'm starting to get concerned about Richie Incognito. He's an older gentleman. I think he's 37. An Achilles injury is nothing to be taken lightly. So I'm starting to question whether he's going to be able to come back, and if he does, is he going to be that much better than Denzel Good? I like Good right now. He's playing well. So it's almost like you don't want to mess with that chemistry. Maybe it's time to say, hey, Richie, thanks for everything you've done after this year, and then just go with Good after that.
I think you may be right. Now, in other injury-related news, we found out on Tuesday that one of our rookie third-round picks, linebacker Tanner Muse, is now lost for the season after toe surgery. Muse had been on IR while trying non-surgical options and also learning a new position. A full recovery is expected, and he should be back in 2021. But there's another third-round pick down the drain for 2020.
Yeah, this is disappointing. I thought he would start day one. I think that he would be an excellent addition to the linebacking core we have right now. Even though Corey Littleton's not necessarily playing the standard that we all thought he would play up to, he's still a fairly decent linebacker, and he's gotten a lot of tackles. But I think Tanner Muse on that linebacking core would have been really good for this team.
And I was looking forward to seeing what kind of contributions he was going to make on the special teams.
Yeah, like as a gunner or something, right? Because the kid is fast and he can tackle.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the third round, hopefully Brian Edwards will be back soon. But it was also interesting to see a little bit of news came out about Lynn Bowden Jr. this week that, he ended up with the Dolphins. And they haven't really known how to use him either. So he was somebody that just might have been picked above his grade. And, he's having a lot of trouble adjusting to the NFL level of play. It might have been a mistake to draft him, but it looks like we might have made the right move in trading him.
Yeah, at least we got something back.
There are a lot of really talented college players who just can't cut it in the NFL.
Yep.
And that brings us to...
And now it's time for another Heidi's High Five.
Here's this week's version of Heidi's High Five. Number one, with the Chargers' colossal failure this past week against Denver, they became the first team in NFL history, according to Joe Reedy of the AP, to lose 4 consecutive leads of 16 points or more in a single season. One of those games against Jacksonville, they still managed to win. Number two, Justin Herbert is about the only reason for optimism among the bolt cutters. That's what I'm calling them now, the bolt cutters. Even though he threw 2 picks versus Denver, he still passed for 278 yards and 3 touchdowns, and he has an arm that Al Davis would have absolutely coveted. He's now thrown for 1,820 yards and 15 touchdowns, with the latter tying Deshaun Watson for the most by a rookie over his first 6 starts. Number 3, lost in the Chargers' epic collapses and the excitement about rookie quarterback Justin Herbert has been the absence of tight end Hunter Henry. So far, the franchise tag recipient is on pace to set career lows in both yards per catch and TD grabs. Will that trend continue against the Raiders, or will this be the week of his potential breakout game? Corey Littleton, I'm looking squarely at you, dude. Number 4, the Chargers are 3-14 in one-score games since last season, which is causing many fans and even players to question certain job statuses pretty much across the board. The team is also now 0-8 in division games since the start of 2019, which is perhaps an even more telling stat. And number 5, with this week's matchup, one team is 4-3 on the uptake. Another team is 2-5 and in a swoon. So the question is, are we catching the Chargers at the right time, or is this an angry beast backed into a corner and ready to wake up and come out swinging? Which defense will step up and which defense will lay down? I'm remaining cautiously optimistic. And that is this week's version of Heidi's High Five.
Yeah, I think cautious optimism is a good idea. You know what's interesting? I was looking up the stats on Hunter Henry earlier, and while he's definitely had some lows, he's actually, as far as total yardage wise, I mean, he's competitive right with our top receivers. I think he has like 314 yards total so far. So he's right about even with ours. It's just low for him. But Justin Herbert, he's looking good. You know, if I was a Chargers fan, I would be happy with what I'm seeing in him.
Yeah, Justin Herbert is just yet another quarterback in the AFC West that's going to give us headaches. You know, the kid's big, powerful, he likes to run, he's got a big arm, and, you know, he's a gunslinger, you know, from what I can see. And yes, I mean, this is something he's concerning, you know, especially with our defensive line not being able to get quarterbacks to the ground. You know, this is something that could turn into a high scoring game really quickly. I mean, let's hope not. I mean, again, this is probably going to be one of those Gruden ball games where we're going to keep away from the Chargers offense, but we definitely don't want Justin Herbert to come on the field and make us look bad after, you know, this promising start to the season. And Hunter Henry, like you said, looking squarely at Littleton, this could be his breakout game, right? Because Littleton's struggling in coverage, you know. So let's hope not. But man, these Chargers, even though they've been losing these games, they you know, looking at the highlights and stuff, you know, they got some ballers on there, man.
Yeah, they're right in there with
them. They got the two. Yeah, they got the two running backs that like to come out of the backfield, catch, and they're good. They're like 4th, 5th on the receiving list. And then Hunter Henry, you know, he his stats might be down, but he's showing up on, you know, 3rd downs and such. And then Keenan Allen, that guy's big and catching the ball everywhere. You know, this is going to be a big test for like Trayvon Mullen, Corey Littleton, you know, and then Mad Max. You know, Mad Max, this is where you cannot break contain against Justin Herbert. The guy likes to run bootlegs and run outside of the pocket. Keeping the quarterback contained is going to be so important this game.
Yeah, this is a game I could really see, you know, going either way. But when I first heard that stat about the Chargers being 3-14 in one-score games, I was like, dang. That, you know, that's tough to be so in it so much and to fall flat on your face so often. It's got to be frustrating to the players, especially.
Yeah.
You know, the turnover was critical against Cleveland, and Justin Herbert threw a pick, and that turnover proved to be very, very costly. So if we can get 1, maybe 2 turnovers against the Chargers, that may be enough that the defense needs to be able to put the rest over the
and
top.
grab a couple sacks. We'll be good.
Yep.
Let's start with 1.
Yeah.
Build it from there.
I miss Buckner. Have I already said that this episode? I think I have.
Yes, but I was just getting ready to say that. I mean, because, yes, Buckner had this defensive line looking good. I think that, you know, Gruden knows he kind of made a mistake there. And we'll see what happens, you know, for the rest of the year and next year with Marinelli. I know that, you know, we were all fairly happy that he came, though, you know, because we were concerned about Gunther's overall ability to coach the team. But, it's just not working out.
Yeah.
I was really worried about that defensive scheme at the very beginning of the game, because on the first play that Cleveland ran, they ran a bootleg to the left. Well, Cleve Farrell pinched inside, and there was nobody on the outside.
Yeah.
Then they ran the exact same play on the second play, same thing. Then on the third play, you had both Corey Littleton and Eric Harris miss tackles, and Nevin Lawson almost missed a tackle. Then on the fourth play, you had consecutive offsides penalties, and one of those wiped out a sack. So we could have had a sack, but with Abram jumping off sides. And then, of course, the fifth play, we got the turnover. So what started out as a disastrous series for the defense, Nick Kwiatkowski bailed him out.
Yeah. And you know what? This is a game I'm hoping that Arnett can come back, because we do need him. What's Mike Williams, right, is the other wide receiver, and he's pretty big too, and he can catch. So I don't want Nevin Lawson covering that guy and or having to cover Keenan.
I don't want Nevin
That's
Lawson covering
disastrous.
anyone.
Yeah.
I don't want him out on the field.
I think he's become this year's Curtis Riley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's look back at the Browns game. Give us some game balls. How about it?
Let's do it.
All right. I know the one that I want to give out, and that is the guy who broke out of his mini slump, Josh Jacobs. While he didn't have any receptions, what he did have was 128 yards rushing on 31 attempts. He shoved the ball down the Browns' throat, and it was the difference of the game. It was awesome.
With a smile on his face, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And he scored a touchdown on that second down,
Yeah, he
Yes,
did.
he did.
but we got jobbed on 2 touchdowns in that game. But hey, Josh Jacobs,
did.
it was good. We need him again this week. You know what I mean? Hopefully he can get 2 weeks game balls from Heidi, you know, because if he's playing well this week too, we got a shot to win.
And he was just getting stronger as the game was going along.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes.
The Graupel Warrior.
Absolutely.
You like that word, don't you?
I do. Who do you got, Homer?
You already know. Derek Carr, right?
Who?
Derek
that?
Carr. Not
What
David
position
Carr.
does he play?
Derek Carr, the quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders. The one that is the all-time leading passer as far as yardage. You know, he holds the record for touchdowns for the Raiders as well. Yes, of course, he doesn't have the wins, but if we keep playing like this, he's going to get those wins, and we're going to get a Super Bowl. But we're looking back versus the Browns. You know, we all know that he can throw the deep ball, all right? We saw him throw for 75 yards, a touchdown pass to Ruggs. We saw him hit Aguilar for a couple of long touchdown passes. So we know he can throw the deep ball, right? But the one thing that I do really appreciate about Derek Carr is that he's also a game manager. I've said it before in the past. He's somewhere between Brad Johnson and Rich Gannon, 2 quarterbacks that John Gruden had a lot of success with. You know, Brad Johnson he had a big arm, but he was more of a game manager. Rich Gannon didn't really have a big arm, but he could dominate in that West Coast offense and move around and move the chains with his legs. Derek Carr is somewhere in between there, and it's starting to show this year. All right, 24 attempts for 15 completions, 112 yards, 4.7 yards an attempt, only 1 touchdown, and his long was 17. Got sacked twice. All right, but so though you look at those numbers, if you didn't see the game, you're thinking, man, it's a horrible performance. But the guy was in command of the offense at the line of scrimmage. He had everybody in the right position. There weren't any silly plays, that as far as illegal formation and things like that. Derek Carr was in complete command. All right, and then 6 rushes for 41 yards, 18 on the long. All right, that's what we've all known he could do that, right? Going back to 2016 in New Orleans when he jumped over the guy. And so we all knew he could do that, but he's finally starting to do it again, because he's back from his injuries. He's believing in his body again. So my game ball goes to Derek Carr because not only is he physically back, he's mentally back. His game is expanding. He's in control of Gruden's offense. He knows how to manage the game, and he knows how to strike deep, and he knows now when it's time to run. I mean, Derek Carr, way to go.
And just for the record, he did have 2 touchdown passes.
Yes, true.
He did.
That's true.
I saw green.
Yeah, if you pull out the index card, you would have noticed that there was a slither of green between the toe and the out of bounds mark.
I saw it, and they did the close-up, and the guy says, oh, they're going to overturn this. And I thought surely they would because they clearly zoomed in, and there it was. But good old refs.
Yeah, and I thought that Ruggs' touchdown was more definite than the Renfro touchdown.
So did I.
That ball hit the ground with Renfro, but I guess they're saying, he crossed the goal line. So that was
good. Yeah, what they said was that at the time that he caught the ball, his knee was down, and he had reached the ball across the goal line before it actually separated from him. So they said control, and it broke the plane.
That was a makeup call is what it was.
Sure it was. All right, I've got to give major props to the Las Vegas Raiders offensive line. Against a Cleveland team that came in 5th in the league against the run, the O-line took over on a sloppy, Graupel field, and they worked its will pretty much all day. They opened holes, played pretty clean, kept Carr upright and mobile, and turned in an overall dominating performance start to finish. I know that John Gruden was smiling. Both Josh Jacobs and Devontae Booker got to eat, and eat well. And I've come to say that one guy that we all dreaded might have to come in and play tackle, that guy named Brandon Parker, he played pretty damn well. And I want to give him special props because he started out the day as inactive and then got pressed into service after Sam Young went down again.
Yeah.
So we have Colton Miller and Gabe Jackson. They've been very reliable. Rodney Hudson is that pillar of strength in the middle. And Denzel Good has been getting high grades from Pro Football Focus. Kudos to the entire offensive line and the line coach Tom Cable for keeping it all together. And at such a high level. So game balls all around, just like Oprah. You get a game ball, and you get a game ball, and you get a game ball. 5 times, spreading the love all around. And let's go ahead and give a 6th one to Tom Cable as well.
Yes, I wanted Cable to stick around the first time as head coach. So I'm glad that he came back. Once a Raider, always a Raider. Doesn't always hold up, with certain players and whatnot. But I'm glad that Tom Cable came back, and he's proven his worth to the team, because there were a lot of people upset with him when we had Parker and Miller as rookies on the outside. There was a lot of people that was upset with him, but he kept his nose to the grindstone and got this line in shape.
Yeah, I've always been a critic of Cable and of Parker, but I've got to admit, Cable this year and the year before, he really seemed to turn it around. He did a good job. And Parker has looked pretty good the last few games, the last couple games especially. I don't have any criticisms there. I got props for him.
All right, so we're going to take a look at the Raiders and see how they're looking at the midway point of the season. So this is kind of a little midway here, temperature, thermometer, taking the pulse of the team, and let's see what we have to say. Now, I'll start off, and I want to point out something that Louis Riddick had said, and this is something, a man whose opinion I respect very much. Now, he said this past week, and I really took the note because these are kind of right on point. When talking about the Raiders' defensive woes, he had this to say. You see the same fundamental mistakes by multiple different players within a position group. That's a coaching issue. Let me take it one step further. Either you're coaching bad fundamentals or you're allowing it to happen and not doing something to break the pattern of mistakes. Modify the methods used to coach, teach, modify the scheme to better fit the player or replace the player. Now, when I see Corey Littleton trailing a tight end or a back coming out of the backfield and trying to chase him down, I see Tahir Whitehead all over again, except this guy's getting a boatload of money. When I see Nevin Lawson getting torched on the edge, I see Garyon Conley all over again. When I see LaMarcus Joyner running all around in the slot, not knowing where to go, I see, pick a number. The point is, even with Nick Kwiatkowski playing solid in the middle, even with Trayvon Mullen giving max effort at one corner, even despite 2 terrific back-to-back pass defenses by LaMarcus Joyner against Cleveland, and even with the mad swagger and relentless pressure all over the field by Jonathan Abram, this defense is missing a lot. I see missed tackles, soft zones, receivers running free, and missed sack opportunity after missed sack opportunity. I counted at least 4 missed sacks by Mad Max last Sunday. And I'm hoping that Derek Carr's blind eyes toward both Nelson Aguilar and Jason Witten were a result of the bad weather in Cleveland and not a change in philosophy. Moreau needs to be targeted. Josh Jacobs out of the backfield on short tosses, more short routes to Ruggs, and hopefully with a fast track in L.A., we'll see some deep balls as well. I'm worried that the defense of the Chargers will come back angry, shut down the run, and stymie the Raiders' attack. We need sacks, we need turnovers, and we just have to hope that the Raiders offense can keep playing clean and avoid the costly turnover. So at the midway point, there's optimism, but it's really cautious optimism.
I will go again with what I said earlier, cautiously optimistic for the game and for the season. I didn't really break down all the games piece by piece preseason, other than just kind of going through on the fly. And I had us at 9-7, and I'm still pretty comfortable with that. I hope I'm wrong. I hope it's better than that, but I'm still comfortable with saying that we're going to pull off at least nine wins. What's interesting, I know we haven't talked about it yet, but depending on the COVID contingency plan, the owners are actually considering having an 8th playoff team for each conference this year. And that might open it up for us to make it into the playoffs as well. What they were talking about earlier this week was that if there are game cancellations that can't be made up, they might open the door for that 8th playoff team in each conference. And what they would do is just have the number 1 seed not have a bye and play the number 8th seed. So that could make things a little bit more interesting as well.
And if that were to happen today, the Raiders are the number 8 team.
Exactly.
Nice. For me, cautiously optimistic. That's probably the right approach. We're definitely inconsistent on defense, especially, but there's no quit in this team. It looks like we're going in the right direction. We didn't jump out and try to get Stephon Gilmore, before the trade deadline, which he probably could have helped our defense become a little more consistent, but we're sticking to the plan. We're trusting the process. So we, right at the halfway point of the season, we look like overall our coaching staff and front office is being consistent and understanding what they want to do. And we are 1 year away, 1 draft class, 1 free agency class from actually becoming this dominant team. Because look, like I've said, yes, we're inconsistent, but at the same time, we've been dealing with a lot of injuries. But one thing that's come to my attention with dealing with all those injuries is we have the depth. We're talking about Denzel Good coming in, playing backup guard and tackle. We're talking about, even though Nevin Lawson's kind of, getting torched here and there, imagine it could be worse, because he has made some kind of plays. So we got the depth to compete. So now it's just a matter of being patient, getting a few more pieces in the offseason, and becoming, a perennial playoff team. But I still think that we're going to go 10-6. I know I talked about if our defense doesn't play well, we could slip to 8-8. But then they showed up against Cleveland. And you can say, well, the inclement weather. But look, they didn't. Cleveland was at home. Cleveland's a good offense that can potentially move the ball also. So it wasn't a given that our defense was going to be able to go in there and stop. Gruden talked about making adjustments. They made those adjustments. And after that, we played much better, that we're going to start trending in the right direction. So we can still get that 10-6 mark. We are a above average team, even though the numbers, they won't show that even if we start playing great defense, because we've given up too much. You know what I mean? But we're an above average team, and we're just a few big plays, and we would have been a dominant team. So I think we're in a good position, and we're still looking like we're going to go 10-6.
And Homer, like you, I had them at 10-6 at the beginning of the year. I'm going to backtrack just a little bit and say 9-7, but I'm going to also say that they will not finish any worse than 9-7. I still see them as a playoff team. And when you take a look at the fact that they've done as much as they have with as many injuries as they have, particularly among the draftees and underperforming high-priced free agents, I think 4-3 record at this point is not too damn bad.
Right. And if we can go 4-2 in the division, that puts us at 8, and 5 right there. And so we just got to steal a game somewhere else. We got to try to get a tiebreaker versus the Colts and or the Dolphins. You know what I mean? To get to that 9th win. But I mean,
Jets and Falcons.
Well, that's true. Yeah. So, there's still a lot of games out there that we can win. I'm excited. I'm excited about this team. I knew that Gruden would get this team turned around. Of course, we had to deal with the Mac trade and then AB, and then injuries this year. But Gruden, going back to the first year he came back, there were a bunch of games that we were leading going into halftime and or the fourth quarter. We just didn't have the roster. But we have that roster now to kind of hold on to those leads, and we're not looking like the Chargers,
To be honest with you, this year, I think the biggest story has been the people questioning Derek Carr.
Oh, man, I'm just smiling. I'm looking at them all now. They all sit there and say, oh, well, let's praise the defense. And then you say, no, it's a good overall team. Let's not take that narrative. Like, come on, man.
Question I have now is, what do you do with that high-priced backup who we haven't seen anything out of all year?
Keep him. I'm still with the mindset that they're taking the Jim Plunkett approach with him. Leave him on the bench. Let him let him recover. Quarterbacks are hard to find in the NFL. If Gruden, this is what I said about Derek Carr, right? To all the Derek Carr haters. I said, if Gruden didn't trust Derek Carr, he'd have traded his ass just like he did Khalil Mack. All right. If Gruden didn't trust that Mariota could play in his system, he would get rid of him.
I wonder what type of draft capital he might command, however.
You might be able to get a third or a second for him or something like that, depending, right? You never know. Let's see how the rest of the college season plays out during the draft next year. If somebody can't find a quarterback, they may come knocking on the door and give us a second or a third. We may be able to be asking for high prices, at that point.
All right, so let's turn the page here and let's go focus on the Los Angeles Chargers game and let's get some score predictions. What do you all think is going to be the outcome of the game?
Considering that our defense has been inconsistent and Herbert is just a young gunslinger that does not give a shit, and they do have offensive weapons, I'm going to call it at 31-28 Raiders.
And I'm going to call it 31-24 Raiders.
We're all pretty close. I have it 34-30. I think that's going to be the exact same score as our first game of the season against the Panthers. But to be honest with you, I think it may be a situation where the Raiders have to mount a comeback and score a touchdown at the end to push it to 34-30.
Good thing that Carr is good with that.
Right.
He's ready to go.
Yep.
All right, Raider Nation, give us a call at the Only Nation Podcast voicemail line at 904-701-8667. That's 904-701-8667. Leave a voicemail or a text message at that number, or send a message via social media, and we'll share your thoughts. We would love to add your voice and your comments as a part of the show. And give us your predictions for the upcoming games also.
All right, that brings us to our next segment.
Hey Homer, did you know?
All right, now in this week's segment, we're all well aware of the love of Clemson University players by John Gruden and Mike Mayock, having drafted 3 Tigers in 2019 and another 2 in 2020. We see the love just by looking at the current roster. But just how far back does the association go between the Raiders and the Tigers on draft day? Well, to answer that question, we go all the way back to the beginning, when the Raiders drafted quarterback Lowndes Shingler in 1961. He was also drafted that year by the Cowboys as the NFL. No Clemson player has ever been drafted higher than number 4 overall, and that has happened 4 times, the most recent by the Raiders in 2019. Jeff McCall was a 7th-round draft pick in 1983 by the Los Angeles Raiders. Defensive end, defensive tackle Chester McLaughlin was drafted by the LA Raiders in the 1st round in 1992 at number 16 overall. He turned out to be a 4-time Pro Bowler. James Trapp, a defensive back wide receiver, was drafted the very next year, 1993, in the 3rd round. And then you have to go all the way forward to the year 2010, when wide receiver Jacoby Ford was drafted in the 4th round by the Oakland Raiders. Then you had the 3 drafted in 2019 and the 2 in 2020. Now, it's interesting to note that right now the Raiders have 5 Clemson Tigers on their current roster, and those 5 players equal the total number of Clemson Tigers picked by the Raiders prior to 2019. And that is this week's version of Homer Did You Know?
Nice. I guarantee you that Trevor Lawrence is going higher than 4 once he comes out.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes. In fact, we probably can point where he's going at this point.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? If the Jets are tanking for Trevor Lawrence and he does come out, what do you think about us picking up Sam Darnold?
No.
That kid, that run that he ran when he ran for 46 yards into the end zone.
You think that Carr's history with fumbles has been frustrating? Have you looked at Donald's history with turnovers?
Okay,
You gotta be crazy.
So, obviously, Homer don't know shit.
That's not true.
All right, cool. Well, with that being said, it's time for the best segment of the show, Heidi's Heroes.
Woohoo! My little woohoos are back.
Nice.
Awesome. I missed them.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so free. Flying away on a wing and a prayer. Who could it be?
Devontae Booker took the long road to the NFL. While he was drafted in only the 2016 draft in the 4th round by the Denver Broncos, he's already 28 years old, somewhat aged for a running back. After his senior year at Grant Union High School in Sacramento, California, where he ran for 2,884 yards and 45 touchdowns, he attended American River College there as he academically was unable to attend a D1 NCAA school. He attended there from 2011 to 2013, but didn't even play football in 2013. He did eventually transfer to Utah in 2014, where he joined their football team. When he played for the Broncos, he was consistently the number 2 or number 3 running back on the roster. His playing time waned in 2019, and he was signed by the Raiders earlier this year on a veteran's minimum contract. This year, he's been playing as a complimentary back to Josh Jacobs, and against the Browns, he simply shined. He ran 5 times for 29 yards and caught a pass for 17. While those numbers might not blow you away, it was clear he lit a fire under Josh Jacobs' heels, which helped pull him out of the slump he's been fighting. Booker is a hardworking team player who is doing his part, and for that reason, he's my hero this week.
That's a cool little story. And T3, you've been calling his name throughout the season, man. So, kudos to you, man. You saw it, and it's happening.
I love this guy, and I love that he's finally getting the opportunity and getting the burn.
Yep. Been really pleased to see him the last few weeks. Been really impressive. Again, that's my word for the day. Impressive.
Nice.
All right. Thanks again to all of our listeners for joining us on the Only Nation podcast. We'll be back at you next week with another episode.
Once again, Raider Nation, here's how you can get in touch with us. Call and leave us a message on the Only Nation podcast voicemail line at 904-701-8667. 904-701-8667. Lock it in. Or you can send us an email at onlynationpod@gmail.com, and we can be found on both Twitter and Instagram at onlynationpod. We can also be found on Facebook and Twitter. Just search the Only Nation Podcast.
Also, check out our website at onlynationpod.com. Be sure to like and subscribe to us on all your favorite social media accounts and podcasting apps. Leave us a message with your name and address, and we'll get some cool Raider gear headed your way.
Thank you once again, everyone. And until next time, go Raiders.
Go Raiders.
Time to get ready for another home game in Los Angeles. Go Raiders!
Uh-oh, Scooby-Doo's back.
Oh, yeah.